I am notoriously quite bad about it. I'm a saver for sure. Like when it
Yeah.
comes to fashion, I just bought my first designer bag ever,
Okay.
like this year, and it was for my wedding. So
Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the Designer Future podcast. I've got Latasha on today. Please go ahead and introduce yourself straight away for the people that don't know who you are.
sure. Thank you so much for having me. So I'm Latasha James, and I am an online educator and content creator and marketing agency owner, and I live in Detroit, Michigan.
Amazing, amazing. So with these type of episodes, like my main goal of getting people like yourself on is just to show people what's possible. Okay, so with that being said, just break down what you was doing before you found the online space. What situation was you in beforehand, and how did you progress into what you're doing now?
Sure. Yeah. I worked in the corporate world for several years before going full time with my business. I actually started freelancing back when I was in college. And at that time, I was working at an internship at a nonprofit, kind of learning the ropes of social media management. But obviously, it was an internship. So I was just learning and sort of freelancing on the side. Once I graduated college, I got a job at a Fortune 500 automotive company. So it was like very corporate, very traditional marketing job, which was great. It was great to get that experience. But yeah, I worked there a couple years, worked at a staffing company for a couple years, and all the while I was sort of side hustling in addition to doing that work. So side hustling in my business, and then also doing YouTube and starting my podcast and kind of having this whole second career. So yeah, that's kind of what I was doing before diving in full time.
Amazing, amazing. So, what about the transition? So, obviously, for the people watching and listening, let's imagine that you know they haven't got a clue when it comes to YouTube or being a social media manager. I know me and you are quite knowledgeable within those niches, but for someone, let's say for example, I know you've even got a course on some of those stuff. So let's imagine that someone has just tapped into YouTube how to make money online with social media. How did
Mhm.
you sort of get from A to B just starting out, and how would you suggest people start out?
hmm Yeah. So, how I started, I actually ran across a job post on LinkedIn when I was in college,
Oh,
and it was for a blogger, like a freelance blogger for this education website. And like I said, I've kind of always been involved in the online space, so I always had my own blog. It wasn't anything professional; it was just sort of, a hobby. But I knew how to write. I knew how to blog, so I applied for that, and that was my first freelance gig ever, which eventually turned into a social media management role. I did the blogging, and then they asked me to do social media copy, and then I started to learn the social media platforms, and it kind of went from there. So I think if I were, to give advice for how to sort of replicate that, I think starting small is a really great way to sort of test the waters because it was pretty low risk. I wasn't diving into a, I don't know, $15,000 contract or something where the expectations were so high and I really didn't know what I was doing. I was doing one blog post for, I mean, it was embarrassingly low at that time. It was $20 a blog post. So, but it was low risk. So I could sort of make sure I liked it, make sure I was good at it before then scaling up and doing the full strategy and the full implementation and all of that. So that gig was actually on Upwork. I found it on LinkedIn, but they actually asked me to, do all of the actual back and forth on Upwork. Yeah, the payment and everything. So I think that's a good place to start, honestly. I think just browsing through Upwork, seeing if there's a quick gig, if there's a quick blog post, a quick social media copy job, a quick Instagram profile refresh, something like that, just to get started.
yeah, amazing. And yeah, for the guys watching and listening, like I obviously come from a video background, so I started creating videos for companies, and
Mhm.
it was only at that point when when I sort of asked the question of, okay, what are you going to do with this video when I've made it for you. And then they said, oh, like we're going to put it on our social media. And then I was like, oh, okay, how about I do that for you? So what
Mhm.
Latasha even said, like she started very small. And I think everyone has, like no one's going to jump straight in and be, 10 clients deep from the get-go. So yeah, taking that first little step. And to be fair, like once I started getting local social media management clients, that's when I was also introduced to Upwork. And then that just blew my mind that I could do the exact same thing, except I'm not actually going out and filming content for these local
Right.
clients. You're doing it all remotely. So no, really, really good. Um,
Yep.
what's one unique thing, whether it's within the online business space or not, one unique thing that you've done that you're sure none of my previous guests have done?
Oh man, I that's a tough one. I mean, I think what I'll say is my sort of superpower, if you will, because I think all of us have something
Mm,
inside of us that makes us unique and that sets us apart.
definitely.
I don't know if any of your previous guests would say this, but I am really proud of my uh, data driven creativity. Uh, like you, I actually have a background in video as well. That's what I went to school for. And so I do a lot of content creation for clients. I do, I'm very passionate, obviously, just from my own marketing about the power of video, but I also have a way of doing it that is very data driven. I love analytics. I can look at reports all day long for different social platforms and for YouTube and really make my creative decisions follow that. And I think that's really important as a marketer. I think you often have people who are either very creative, very artsy, or very analytical. And there's not often kind of that marriage of the two. So that's definitely, the unique selling proposition I have that I bring to my work.
Amazing, amazing. So let's imagine that somehow I managed to get into your pocket right now and delete all but 3 apps from your phone. What 3 apps would you hope that I left on your phone?
Mm-hmm. So definitely email, number one. And then I would probably say my banking app, honestly. I think knowing your numbers is incredibly important. It's very, unsexy to talk about, but as a business owner, you have to know your numbers, you have to know your finances. And I guess I would say at this point, I would say YouTube, the YouTube creator app is the one like social app that I would keep on my phone.
Amazing, amazing. So when you was a child, what did you want to be, and how does that obviously differ to what you're doing now?
This is so funny because I've wanted to do a lot of different things. One of the early ones that I remember wanting to do is be a radio host, which I have like
Are you
tapes of
the
me and
podcast?
I
Uh,
know, I
yeah,
know.
make your own one.
It's so funny. Yeah, I have tapes of me and my sister. We would like record the radio and then like dub our voices over. It's so funny. So I loved that. And then also, this one is hilarious, but I wanted to be an infomercial host. Um, so like QVC, I don't know if you know what
Yeah,
that is over
I
there,
know.
but yeah, like the home shopping network.
And they're
I
like doing
would,
like brooms and yeah, just like
yes,
random things.
I
Yeah,
loved it, and I still love it. I'll still like just put it on in the background and have it on. It's so weird, but it is kind of funny because I always was interested in, marketing and the media, and it's sort of interesting where I ended up. It's sort of a combination of the two, I guess.
amazing, amazing. So as you know, both of us are online business owners, and that is kind of the sort of theme of this podcast is allowing people to design a future online. Um, where would you say? Obviously, you're a social media manager. I've been in social media management as well. We're both YouTubers. We both have probably what people are trying to achieve in terms of like I'm always trying to get more streams of income, multiple streams of income, and I know that's something that's very important to yourself. So because you're earning from different places, where would you suggest someone start? Would it be social media management? Would it be YouTube? Would it be the courses? Like, I know there's so many different avenues.
Mhm.
And the thing is, for the guys watching and listening, like, you can make money in all of these avenues. Like you,
Mhm.
there's not one particular direction. But what would you suggest if someone was literally just getting started? Let's imagine, like you said, they're working a 9 to 5, they're looking for a side hustle to get started, just to get that proof of concept more than anything.
For sure. So I recommend to everybody to pick a service and pick a product. I would say the service should likely come first just because you need to earn money first and foremost. Really think profit first, make sure that you're focusing on revenue generating activities first. And the thing with a product is you're not going to get rich off of a course or a digital product usually unless you have a large audience built up already on day one. But what's going to happen is it does snowball and it works in the background for you. So maybe a couple years down the road, it's becoming a very solid stream of income. So I recommend starting that, soon after you get your service down pat. Work on some type of a digital product that you can sell as well to kind of have that backup revenue stream and have that start working in the background. And yeah, that might be a course, that might be a digital product. YouTube, even to some extent, I mean, YouTube is much more active. It's not really passive income because you are having to produce content for it, but it does sort of work in the background in the same way that you don't get rich off of YouTube on day one. It takes time to build a following. So you do have to really nurture it. But once it does start rolling, it can be a really healthy revenue stream, lead generator, and all of that.
Definitely, definitely. Okay, cool. So yeah, now I really want to dive deep. Before I get on to my sort of basic questions, I really want to dive deep into the social media management as a service. So with that being said, let's imagine that someone's like, okay, cool. I like social media. I'm good at creating content. How do I now package and sell this to clients? So, what does that look like for you and your team in terms of, managing other people's social media when it comes to, the strategy, the creating the content, liaising with the customers as well? Just if you could outline, that would be great.
Sure. Yeah. So I'll be honest that right now, actually, this was a big change I made in 2021.
Mhm.
Is we're actually only doing strategy now. I'm not doing full service anymore. It's just not realistic. With, as you mentioned, all of the other streams and things that I'm doing, it's not realistic to do full service. I have a couple of full service clients still, just that have hung on for a while,
And
but we're
but
just doing strategy. Mhm.
before you get into that, sorry,
Yeah.
I don't hate to cut in, but I love to like diagnose. Let's say
Yeah.
analytical. I like diagnosing people and what they're. How comes you've sort of drawn back from that? What have you experienced in the past? Because it's not all smiles and rainbows, right? Like everyone looks at it and they're like, oh my God, you've got clients from all over the world in
Yeah.
different, like, oh, you're getting paid this much, but they don't see the behind the scenes of, you know, the not so nice clients or the not so nice side of having these luxurious, you know, to an outsider it looks very luxurious, right? But I can imagine there has been some situations you've encountered as well.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, all of the above. I've definitely had a couple of quote unquote nightmare clients, not many though, because I'm a big believer in following your intuition and listening to your gut. And so I usually know from the discovery call what it's going to turn
Yeah.
out like. But yeah, I mean, I love doing full service. If I didn't have a YouTube channel, if I didn't have a course, if I didn't, do speaking gigs, if I didn't have a podcast, I mean, there's so many other things. I would absolutely be a book, focusing on being a booked out social media manager. But I reached a point where number one, those other revenue streams were growing and really rivaling the agency. Actually, I mean, I was making more from, no, not, I would say it was about 50-50 from YouTube and the education side of the business and the agency. It was about half and half. And I was out of bandwidth. I just didn't have the physical time. I still edit all of my own videos. I still edit all of my own podcasts. Those things are very close to me. I know those are not the smartest business decisions to do those things, but they're just very close to
Hard,
my heart. It's
hard though. It's
so
hard
hard
to
to
let
let go.
go. It's hard to let go.
It's really, really hard.
It is.
Um, so yeah, I was at the point where I could either continue to grow the agency, meaning hire more people, or I could keep things pretty lean with just a very small team of 3, which is what I have now, and working with freelance help. Sometimes I keep it really lean and just focus on the areas that were growing really quickly. And one of the things that I actually found too with the strategy work is that's what a lot of people were coming to me for more and more over these past couple years. A lot of businesses are kind of understanding the value of having an in-house social team, but
Mm.
they just are looking for that expert opinion, that expert insight to really guide them and get them off in the right direction, as opposed to full on managing it for them. So it just made more sense.
So true, so true. And with that being said, just out of experience as well, like there's clients that I've held for 4 years at this point, but there's also clients that would come for the minimum 3 months or maximum 3 months, let's say, for example. So what do you find that's like in terms of like long relationships? Because obviously I'm guessing like the strategy is just like a one-off service you're doing now. So is
Yep.
that, do you find that they come back, or how does that sort of look now you're just doing the strategy side?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So it's a one-time service. It's like a 30-day project. We hop on a kickoff call. I really dive into understanding their business, understanding their goals, and then I do a bunch of research. Me and the team do put together a report, and then we hop on another call and basically present the report, present the campaign ideas, and then kind of let them go on their way. But it does often lead to a couple things, either consulting clients. So they'll book a certain number of consulting hours with me through the year. So maybe we're meeting every month after I do that report, and I'm meeting with their team and helping them actually with the implementation. I'm not actually doing the implementation, but I'm giving them those insights or giving them feedback on campaigns that they're running and things like that. Or it'll be an annual thing where they want a strategy every year, or they want, profile cleanups every year and things like that. So, it's not as long term in the sense that it's like a monthly retainer like I was used to when I was doing full service, but it definitely, I mean, those relationships are still maintained. And then those are also people who are referring me all the time.
Yeah.
So that's really valuable too.
Yeah, amazing. And I think that's one thing that people overlook is referrals when it comes to the social media side of things. Like there's plenty of people that I've jumped on like consulting calls with, and we typically do like the like retainer based sort of
Yep.
clients. So and sometimes it's not a good fit and you need to do that, but then they might not be a good fit, but their best friend might own a business that needs help on that basis. So yeah, I think that's so important. So obviously we've talked about, the fact you're not creating content for these individual businesses now. You're focusing mainly on creating content for your own brand and your own educational business. So how do you go about creating content? Same again, let's imagine someone's jumped into this. They want to get started on YouTube. They want to start creating their own digital products. How would you go about them starting to create content?
Yeah. So number one, if you have any bit of following or customer base as it is, listen to them. Number one, I wish I would have listened to my audience more in the beginning. Um, because I kind of made a channel pivot actually. I started out doing lifestyle content on YouTube, and it wasn't really until I don't know, 3 years into my YouTube journey that I started doing business content. And when I made my first Freelance Friday episode, which later became my podcast, people just had so many questions. They were so into it, and even though it wasn't like the highest performing video I've ever done, it was definitely the most engaged with. And so listen to whatever bits of insight your audience has for you. I say that's the easiest place to start is just by answering your FAQs. Whether you're, a service-based business, a product-based business, just a personal brand, figure out what questions people ask you all the time and answer those. Each one of those questions can be a video. That's the simplest thing to start with.
Mm, it's amazing. It's amazing. And I always say that is people overlook the fact that YouTube is a search engine.
Yes.
Like everyone thinks about, your Logan Pauls and these type of videos that's the only way that you can make money on YouTube or get recognized on YouTube. But it's not realistic for someone to never started like YouTube and to go out and do these extravagant videos. And honestly, it's probably my top performing 3 videos are all genuinely questions that my clients have asked me, and I've gone, you know what? Instead of me just giving you a response, I'll make a video on it. And with that being said, I then just uploaded it to my YouTube channel, and
Yep.
that's has got the most attractive views as well. Yeah,
Yep.
amazing.
Perfect. And
Um,
can I also say, when you're first starting, another thing I wish I would have done is thought about how I'm going to get these people to my website and to my offers. So it's not to say that you need to start selling off the bat. In fact, I wouldn't recommend that. I wouldn't, recommend your first few videos be talking about your products or services,
mhm,
but just start a lead magnet, get an email list going, have it in your description box. I just started that literally the past, I don't know, year.
mm,
And I mean, I'd never talk about my lead magnet ever. And it consistently generates tens of thousands of emails in just by having it in there. So if I am, I can only imagine how many emails I would have if I would have started that on day one. So think about that too.
yeah, and I think that's so important as well. Like starting something like a YouTube channel, it's a big step for people, right? It's a
Mhm.
big step, and a lot of people put it off because it is a big step and they don't want their first video to be, rubbish, or they're just going to personally see it like that. But I think one of the other key things I'd say if you are starting something is just pretend from the get-go that you're speaking to millions and millions of people. And
Yeah.
so I agree in the sense of yes, like you don't want to be promoting your product straight away, but I do think that you should speak like you're speaking to, a whole audience of people from the get-go.
Yeah.
And obviously, if you have a product, then don't be afraid to mention it a little bit. But like you said, obviously, you don't want to go in with one subscriber and being like, buy my product, buy my product.
Yeah.
Also, that's not what YouTube is there for. I don't think like there's if that is that your main goal. Obviously, like Latasha, there's many ways for you to get course sales, right? But
Mhm.
it's the trust and the the relationships that your YouTube following has got with you on the back of X amount of YouTube videos that they've watched versus
Yep.
putting a Facebook ad in front of them, right? It's a completely different kettle of fish when it comes to the ins and outs. And okay, you spent a lot of time up front creating these YouTube videos, but they work 24/7, 7 days a week,
Yep.
building relationships with people on the internet at the end of the day, right? So
Absolutely.
I love that. I love that. And yeah, I'd say obviously the main thing is just get going. Um, what's one thing when it comes to creating systems? Like you said, you've now got team members, you've had to draw back on services you were offering to make sure that you had your YouTube videos going out, your podcast going out. And obviously, you mentioned you still edit your own videos and your podcast. So, hats off to you for that as well, for one thing. Obviously, one of the offers that we offer as a business is podcast editing. So editing podcasts for our clients, and that just to let the guys watching as well. Like that service, like you said, was on the back of I just made a video that one of my clients was asking me, and
Yep.
then people discovered it from searching. And in that video, I just made a slight call to action and said, look, this is something I could offer as a service. If you're interested, my email is below, and
Yep.
that generated leads and just sprang out a new service within our business. But even that, like I have one of my team members edits all of our clients' podcast videos, but I still like editing my own podcast. So it
Yeah.
just, it's hard, right? So yeah, I've sort of went off on a tangent, but when it comes to systems and processes, what does that look like for you, and how do you manage those as well?
So, as far as the team side of things, I'm a big believer in SOPs, standard operating procedures. I record everything I do. When I develop a system or when I find something that really works, I just do a quick, I like the tool Vidyard. Loom is similar, just
Mhm.
it's a browser extension. Click the button and just record what you're doing. Even if you don't have a team yet, even if you're listening to this and thinking, I
Oh, wow.
not at the point. Yep.
Right.
Believe me, when you need to hire your first team member, you will be so grateful that you have these all backed up. And it doesn't have to be anything fancy, just a Google Doc. I mean, that's what I did. Just put them into a Google Doc. Here's how to edit this podcast. Here's how to upload this social media post. So I luckily was pretty good about doing that. So that makes the onboarding process really, really easy and the delegation process really easy. And even just for me to, remember exactly how I've done certain things. But yeah, I mean, I'm big on also breaking up my week. So I have certain days of the week that I do and do not do things. I really only am taking meetings on Tuesdays and Thursdays for the most part. So then I have Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Monday is my CEO day where I'm doing all the kind of admin type of things, invoicing, hiring, team calls, things like that. And then Wednesday and Friday are usually work days. So I'm either doing production, actually filming videos. And I'm a big believer in batching as well. So I try my very best to have a month's worth of content batched out in a week or so. So I'm not recording every single week. And then yeah, the other time is spent actually doing the client work, editing, doing all the things. So that has really really helped having certain days for certain things so you're not just scrambling and looking at this huge to-do list and being like, "Oh my gosh, what do I do today?" You actually know, okay, Tuesday is a client day. I'm only focusing on client work and client meetings, etc.
Amazing. And do you, because obviously, as entrepreneurs, like we go through these cycles of thinking stuff needs to be done certain ways, right? So, when you talk about habits and systems of how you get stuff done, have you have you found that you prefer to split up in days rather than, say, for example, you know, you're doing outreach first thing in the morning, you're then doing client work after, you're then doing, um, production in terms of creating your own content, and then after you're doing teamwork, and you're just doing that every day consistently. You're
Yeah.
saying you find it easier to split up days.
I do now. So when I was first starting out, when I first went full time in my business, I very much did what you mentioned. Like I would do, outreach is something I don't really do anymore because we're pretty booked out.
Mm.
And my version of outreach is YouTube now for the
Yeah,
most part because most of my leads are inbound. But when I was first starting, it was like, yeah, spend a couple of hours on Upwork or on LinkedIn or calling people or going to businesses. And that really worked for me then. Now my business is just different and it just doesn't seem to work as well for me. And production for me is something like getting on camera. I don't know what it is, but I have this mental block about it now where I cannot have other things around that time. Like I have to have a full production day
yeah,
just because if I get stressed out, if a light isn't working or something like that, it affects your whole presence on camera. So I find it really important to have a day blocked off for that so I can take my time with it or, go for a walk and then come back and do it if I need to. So,
yeah. I think that that's so important as well. As creators, when you block off time to create, and
mhm.
then let's say for example you block out 2 hours to create a video, and all of a sudden you look and it's been 4.5 hours, and you're like, where has that gone? And I've created a 15-minute video. So yeah, no, I've also, I've converted pretty recently into delegating my days as well, because it's easy to, when you work in a team, to like you said, using Loom and delegating certain tasks, but you then sort of forget. And I love the CEO day, by the way. Like, I love that. Because as a CEO, as the founder, it's easy to run around like a headless chicken thinking that you need to do all of these things in one day, when
Yeah.
realistically you do sometimes need to just take a step back and think, you know what, that doesn't actually need to get done today, even though it is on your to-do list, even though it
Yeah.
does need to get done, it doesn't necessarily need to get done today. And just
Yep.
because that client has messaged you at 10 past one, you haven't got to message them back at
Yeah.
half past just because they're your client and they're paying you X. So I think that's really important. Yeah.
Yeah.
Before we finish this up, I would just love to dive deep into YouTube, and I
Yeah.
know that's where I found you. I know that you checked out my channel. Thank you so much for that. But I have a real passion for YouTube. I love the agency side of things. I love side hustles. I love doing all of this, but push comes to shove, I love creating videos.
Mhm.
So I know you do too. So
Yeah.
what's the goals when it comes to the channel? Like you said, it's generating leads for your business. But what's the goals with the YouTube? Um, just in general, like what type of videos should the people watching and listening this expect from you moving forward as well?
Yeah, absolutely. So the main business goal for my YouTube right now is just to educate people. Number one, it's a relationship builder, and I primarily post videos about social media management, but also just general freelancing content. Like I said, my podcast is called the Freelance Friday Podcast, so I talk about all things freelancing, not just social media management. And yeah, I just kind of like to sort of share what a real life of a freelancer is like. What it does for the business then is it is a big refer to my online courses. So I'm often sharing content that is sort of like a predecessor to my online courses essentially. And that's the biggest impact that it has there. It also does really fuel the agency side of the business as well, inadvertently. Like, it's not really I rarely give those call to actions like, hey, get a social media strategy from me, but it just, people get curious, they go down that rabbit hole of finding me, and it ends up being the number one referrer to my agency as well. So I mean, if anyone is looking to start YouTube, that's really my tip, is to just give that value, share that you know what you're talking about. Because even though I'm not speaking directly to an agency client in my YouTube videos, if an agency client sees me and sees, oh, she knows what she's talking about, or she really is passionate about this industry, or she's a really hard worker, they're gonna see that you're the person that they want to hire still. So
Definitely, yeah. And with that being said, it is crazy the amount of trust, and quite rightly so. If you spend hours making this perfected video that you're explaining down to a T of how something happens, and you, like you said, you haven't even got to give a call to action. Like, if people are interested, they will find a way to contact
yes.
you. Like, even yeah, I'll wake up some mornings and have a like a and this is also good to know, like, for the people watching and listening, is like, you do not need thousands and thousands of subscribers to use YouTube as a lead generation tool for your business or your service. I remember having like pretty much zero subscribers and getting leads from my YouTube, and I'm just like, how? Like, but having one video that you're explaining something and showing that you're an authority within that industry or that niche can definitely make a massive difference. So yeah, thank you so much, Latasha.
Yeah.
Just to finish up, let's say you can only read one book for the rest of time,
Oh
or
my
one
gosh.
course, what would that be?
Oh man. That is tough. This is actually it's not really a hardcore business book, I guess, but I love Steal Like an Artist by Austin Kleon. Have you read it?
I haven't, but I've heard, Ali Abdul?
I don't think so.
Yeah,
No.
no, he's another guy. He's in London. He's a doctor,
Okay.
and he does a lot of like productivity videos, and he's
Cool.
mentioned that quite a few times, and it's on my list. Yeah,
Yeah, it's really, really good. And I would pick this as my only one to read just because it's really short. So it's a really quick read and there's like drawings in it. That's his whole thing. He does, he's an artist. And so he does
sure.
sketches and things like that. So it's a fun read, it's a light read. But it always gives me just like that boost of motivation when I read it. And I'm all about strategy and all the technical stuff, but sometimes just gets too much. And I'm like, at the end of the day, we should be liking what we do. We should be enjoying our jobs. Otherwise, I can just go back to a cubicle and work a 9 to 5. So I really like that one because it keeps me really positive and motivated and inspired just to create.
100%, 100%, amazing. I know I've got to ask you a couple of questions just before we shoot off. We'll wrap it up in a couple of minutes, but just a couple of things that have come to mind. Like, you are obviously a boss woman. When it comes to obviously your online stuff, amazing. I know a lot of people watching this, might see what you're doing and not see the behind the scenes things, right? So the question I wanted to ask you is about like investing as well. Is investing something you're doing? Because I know a lot of females that I speak to, not I hate to say just females, there's a lot of men
Yeah.
that I speak to that don't invest. But when it comes to investing, obviously you're making this money online now. Like, what are you doing with the money in terms of like the brands? Because it's easy to go out and buy. I don't know what you're into, like fashion wise, but it's easy to go and buy a Louis Vuitton bag or, do you know what I mean, and to treat yourself. But in
Mhm.
terms of like your financial side of things, what does that look like for you?
Yeah, that is a great question. And I will be honest that I'm not the person to ask for advice on this
Okay.
because I am notoriously quite bad about it. I'm a saver for sure. Like when it
Yeah.
comes to fashion, I just bought my first designer bag ever.
Okay.
Like this year and it was for my wedding. so
Oh, nice. Congrats.
yeah, so I'm definitely a saver. I'm definitely very frugal and I'm with you on that. In terms of investing, like I said, I'm actually quite not that literate about it. I
Okay.
just hired my first uh, financial planner.
Okay.
Uh, yeah, which I definitely recommend to anybody. Once you start making, more than enough to survive and start making a little extra, hire somebody who knows what they're talking about and who can help you make those smart decisions for yourself because it is so important. I definitely am working through some money blocks of my own because I grew up without a lot of money at all. And so I definitely got into like that money hoarding mentality where it's like, okay, just save everything because it might,
Might not happen.
you might not have it again. Yeah. And
Yeah,
it is, I mean, your money can be working so much harder for you if you are investing it. So, I mean, of course, I have investments and things like that, but I'm looking to make much smarter and bigger investments in the future. So, I have someone working with me on that now.
amazing, amazing. Well, thank you so much again for coming on. It's been an absolute pleasure. Obviously, this is the Design of Future podcast, so I just want to end up with the last question of where is Latasha a year from now? If we jumped on the same podcast a year from now, what news would you be telling me?
Okay, well, I hope that all of us are going to be outside of our houses working at coffee shops again. Traveling, maybe I'll be in England, I don't know, doing a talk or something. Let's manifest that. But yeah, I mean, definitely that's like definitely something that fuels me and lights me up is meeting people and traveling. So I hope to be doing that again. And I mean, yeah, I really hope to just be investing more into the product side of the business. Hopefully, I'll have another course or two. I'm going to be starting my first cohort based course later this month, which I'm super excited about. So it's going to be kind of a live class format, and I'm really pumped about that. So I hope it turns out well, so I can replicate that and, like I said, maybe do some events with it or something when the world opens back up. So.
Amazing, amazing. Well, thank you so much once again for coming on. Guys, I'm going to leave Latasha's YouTube channel and her podcast linked in the description below. Please go check it out. And thank you guys for watching and listening. I'll see you in the next episode. Take care.
Hollywood 6.